Welcome to How Leaders Lead. I'm David Novak, and every week I have conversations with the very best leaders in the world to help you become the best leader that you can be. Well, it's the end of the quarter, which means I've got my sidekick with me. How you doing, Kula?
Oh, gosh. Being your sidekick is truly one of the highest honors that I've ever had in my life, so I'm great,
Oh, my
David.
God. I think I'm going to puke, but let's get going.
Well, today is our best of quarter 4 episode, and if you've never listened to a best of quarter episode before, here's what you can expect in the next 30 to 40-ish minutes. We have pulled out some of the very best moments from the podcast the past 3 months. And so each guest that we've had, we've identified one of their most insightful moments, and we've put it all together in what I like to call the highlight reel of the quarter. So basically, David and I will tee up every clip. We'll tell you which episode number that clip was from. And then if you missed that full episode, go back in the feed and give it a listen so you can take full advantage of the access you have to learn from all of these incredible leaders that we've had the privilege of interviewing this quarter. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in with this quarter's best of episode.
This fall, I had a heck of a good time on the sidelines with the Missouri Tigers football team. I was at the Vandy game and was able to travel with the team to Tuscaloosa to see them play Alabama. It was much more fun watching the Vandy game because the Tigers won in 2 overtimes. It was not that great watching them play Alabama because they got absolutely killed. But what has been really amazing for me is to see close up how Coach Drink is building a winning culture at my alma mater. So let's listen in. This is from episode 207.
Everybody's always looking for an edge over the competition, right? But we define it. Edge for us is energy, details, grit, and emotional consistency. We believe that positive, contagious energy, it's contagious, and we work on it every single day. At practice, we have this thing called DAPS, which is the transfer of positive energy. You know, dapping your teammate up, running on and off the field, dapping, in a drill, dapping a coach, because we want our guys to be excited to be at practice. We want our guys to be excited about what they're doing. And man, there's no energy vampires allowed. You got bad attitude, bad energy, don't come in here. Go change your mindset or don't come. But it's only positive energy here. We believe details drive excellence. We believe the separation is in the details. Like, how do we get an edge over a competition? Man, we practice with great energy and great attention to detail. We all know that grit, that stubborn refusal to quit, that's how we define grit, is just showing up every day. If you can just show up every day with positive, contagious energy and you can find details in your work, and man, you're just there every single day, you're going to gain an edge over the competition. But then the last one, it's consistency. It's emotional consistency, right? Consistency, I believe, is the highest paid trait in the world. People pay you to be consistent every single day, a known quantity. And so we believe those 4 characteristics apply to whether you're talking about football, whether you're talking about being a CEO, whether you're talking about being in the classroom. If you have those 4 characteristics in your daily operational procedure, we believe you'll have an edge over the competition.
You know, I was thinking as you were talking that you were sounding like a CEO right there. And you are the CEO of the Missouri football program.
Yep.
But, you know, how much time have you put into thinking about these concepts? Because you've got real clarity around what you stand for, what do you want to have happen, what your culture is.
You know, at first I didn't. I tell you what, when I first got to App State, I kind of had this loose idea. I knew what my core values were, but I didn't have a holistic program. And to be honest, we had a lot of really talented players, and we really overachieved that year, but it was really more of them than me. I think I added some good scheme stuff, but really it was more them than me. And when I first got here, I relied on my personality and I relied on trying to bring people together, but I hadn't learned accountability, enforcing the accountability of what you really want to be. And I hadn't learned all the details yet. And I really was spending so much time trying to be the offensive coordinator and trying to raise money and trying to recruit that I really wasn't developing myself enough. And so whenever I took a step back and said, you know what, I'm not doing a very good job as a head coach. I better start studying. I better dive into books. I better figure out how to apply myself. That's really when it became clear to me, like, You better have a clear, consistent message of who you want to be, and you better be willing to hold people accountable. And the only way you'll hold people accountable is if you believe enough in it that if you don't, you know you're going to lose. And so that's really what it came down to me. Like, man, the hardest thing for me as a people pleaser is to hold people accountable. Like today. Today we go out to practice, and my star football player doesn't have his thigh pads in. And I had a choice to make. I can either say, hey, man, he's a star. Let's not rock the boat today. Let's just have a positive. Let's just be positive. No. Well, that's a lack of detail. And if I don't attack it, then that's a lack of emotional consistency, and I'm violating rule number 3, which is put the team first. So I get on him, I get on his position coach, and I set the tone for the rest of the practice. Like, we ain't bull crapping. We're out here to get better. And the only way we can get better is we apply the standards to every single person. Because I know if we don't, we're going to lose.
David, have you ever performed a TikTok dance before?
Yeah, I do that most days.
Most days?
No.
If you're listening to this episode, go find David now, because TikTok's about to go away forever.
No, if you TikTok 2 times a day, it keeps the doctor away.
Something like that. Well, the reason I ask is because our next guest, John Peyton, is the CEO of Dine Brands, which is the parent company of IHOP and Applebee's, which you know are fancy like Applebee's on a date night. Okay, clearly you've not done that TikTok dance. But what you're about to hear in this clip is how the viral TikTok dance drove a lot of attention to one of John's brands and how he made the most of it with his team. You'll also hear about some of the commercials that he's doing in partnership with the NFL players and coaches this season. A couple of really amazing stories that we've got teed up for you. This clip is from episode 211.
You know, I was in Nashville a couple of years ago, and I met this guy named Josh Jenkins, who just so happened to write one of your favorite songs with Walker Hayes, and that song is...
Fancy Like, all about his wife's and his date night at Applebee's.
Well, as I understand it, I mean, this went viral. There's all kind. It really took off. Tell us about that experience and how you capitalize on it.
So, crazy phenomenon, right? A gift from the heavens, because we had nothing to do with it. And we all talk about what happens when something goes viral, and we all work hard to make things go viral. And the truth is, if we had asked our ad agency to write a song about Applebee's, nothing would have happened. But the truth is that Walker Hayes, he and his wife have date night at Applebee's in their real life. They have 6 children, and he wrote the song that meant a lot to him. He then made it extra viral by doing the dance that he put on TikTok. And our marketing team jumped on it, right? We partnered with him. He ended up doing over 40 appearances for us. He performed at our brand conferences. There were so many versions of the dance on TikTok that our TV spots became, right, a accumulation of just TikToks, right, including Shaq leaving at Applebee's and doing the dance with some other guests that were just in front of the restaurant. You can't pay for that. You can't make that up.
I saw that. I said, did you do that? No, it actually happened.
No. You know, when Shaq knows the dance and Shaq's doing the dance with people, you know, who are walking into the restaurant, you just look up to the skies and you just say thank you. But to your point, you have to have a really nimble, right, and to our point earlier, marketing team that knows how to jump on it and amplify it and turn it into something. And that's exactly what our team did.
And now I understand you've got some NFL players working in your restaurants. Tell me more about that.
So Applebee's is the casual dining sponsor of the NFL this year. First time we've had a partnership at that level, and we just launched 2 weeks ago a new series of spots featuring NFL. Not all players, right? So we have Dan Campbell, the coach of Detroit. We've got Brock Purdy from San Francisco, Saquon Barkley from Philadelphia, and they're all in spots. They're very funny. They're very clever. You know, in the spots, you know, Campbell is an assistant manager. One of the football players is a server in training, and they're breaking through. So Dan Campbell, did a really clever spot where he's taking an order, but he puts the menu over his face like he would, calling plays from the sideline, because he tells his guests he doesn't want the other table next door to them to hear their order. And he was hilarious. He was a natural. And at his first, the NFL season kicked off 2 weeks ago, but at his pregame press conference, he got 10 minutes of questions from the sports media about the commercial. And we had no idea you were so funny, Dan. And why did you decide Applebee's? And again, like to your point, that's the cherry on top, right? We didn't pay for that, but the commercials broke through, and we're thrilled that he got 10 minutes of questions about the spot during his pregame press conference.
When opportunities like that pop up, those viral moments, your ability to take full advantage of them comes down to the people you've hired and your culture. Do you have a great team? Do people feel empowered to be creative and run with ideas? Do they operate with urgency? Well, this next guest is going to explain how she does all these things as she's built a $1 billion whiskey brand. Fawn Weaver is the founder and CEO of Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey. And I can't wait for you to learn from her. So let's tune in. This is from episode 210. You are such a force of nature. I mean, you're like you're such a strong person, a strong leader. How do you get people to work for you?
Easy is I find people that are just as strong, just as passionate, that literally are entrepreneurs. I'm always looking for entrepreneurs. I want people who want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't want the risk of it. So they want to come into a company, they want to do their jobs, and they want you to leave them alone. That works really well for me. Here's your goal. Here's your area. I don't care if you're doing it at 2:00 in the afternoon or 2:00 in the morning on the beaches of Ibiza. Get your goal done. That is, and so
get those goals done.
Get the goals done. But I could care less at what time you're doing it, when you're doing it, and so I hire entrepreneurs and I get out of their way.
You've built this business that's now valued over $1 billion. And I would bet you have people knocking on your door now. I mean, you got the 7th most visited distillery. People are trying to buy you, I'm sure, or at least making offers. What keeps you from falling prey to the maybe the big bucks at this stage?
What am I going to do if I did that? I love what I do. I do not believe anyone could do it better. I am able to do it without being under anyone's thumb. I'm able to do it and have 100% focus on building the legacy of Nearest Green. I could not do that in somebody else's company. And I am confident I can do this for the next 25 years at this pace. So that's what I plan to do.
It's very human for all of us to want to get some credit. And yet I've heard you talk about being okay if you're forgotten as the builder of this brand, as long as Nearest is remembered. Yeah. Say more.
I don't care. I've never cared about my legacy. It is, I don't know any other way to say it other than I'm not living for my obituary. I don't care what people say when I'm gone. I care about doing what it is that I believe that I have been called to do. And I don't believe that that is cementing the legacy of Fawn Weaver. I believe it's cementing the legacy of Nearest Green. And I'm perfectly content with putting everything into making his name ubiquitous around the world. I can't share that glory. If my goal is to make his name ubiquitous around the world, then my name cannot do the same.
Erika Ayers Badan is the CEO of Food 52, and before that, she was the CEO of Barstool Sports. Talk about someone who really knows how to build a brand. Erika really understands the power of digital, which is something every leader needs to lean into if they want to be successful and stay relevant in today's day and age. Here's a clip from episode 213.
What advice would you give other leaders on how to make digital a real competitive advantage?
I mean, digital is everything at this point. So if you don't understand the internet, I think you're going to have a hard time leading credibly. And I think you got to be a student of it. I was always kind of surprised if I would ask people, hey, did you, I remember working at AOL, and I remember being in a huge meeting once, probably 30 people in the meeting. And we asked a really simple question, which is, how many people went to the AOL homepage today and read a news article or clicked on the weather? And the answer was 0. And I was like, what the heck are we doing here? Like, if we're not even using the product that we're making, there's 0 chance anybody else is going to use it either. So the first thing is you have to dog food. You have to use the product that you're making. And you have to understand your consumer is going to find you through the internet at this point. Like, unless you're a very small local brand, the internet is the gateway to your audience. And you have to understand how to show up there. How are your competitors showing up there? How do you look, what are you going to do to be there? How do you transact once you are there? So I think you have to really understand the mechanics, and you have to have a vision and a perspective on how you can and will show up.
What are the fundamentals of getting eyeballs and audience growth?
A point of view, authenticity, like you have to have something to say that people want to listen to. And 2, you have to be maniacally consistent about it. So, we always said it at Barstool, which is, and now I'm living this at Food 52, but it was funny at Barstool, we would interview talent. I remember interviewing a really traditional sports guy, basketball guy. And one of the things we said to him was like, look, when the Knicks game ends at midnight, you got to go online, you got to write a blog, you got to go on, live, you got to be like, here's what happened with the game, here's my opinion, did you see this ridiculous da-da-da-da-da? And the guy was like, oh, I can't do that. Like, I would just have my producer tell me and I'd do it in the morning. And the internet happens so fast that if you're not there in the moment with something to say, people are not waiting for you anymore, and they'll forget about you. So that is my single biggest piece of advice.
Things do move so fast in every business now, and I'm sure in the business you're in right now, you gotta be on your toes if you're going to really set the pace as a leader. Give me some insight on how you keep pace, and even go beyond that and set the pace in terms of speed and insight.
I think I'm a little bit of a nightmare like that. I think I have a lot of energy, and I like to move very fast. I'm very impatient. And I like a challenge. I like to think about something all the time and puzzle my way through it. And I can be a little bit erratic. The Food 52 people listening to this are like, yeah. But, for me, I was just always really motivated to learn something, make something, or do something. And I really wanted to do it with a team, and I really wanted to do it as a group. And I think that that's what's helped me make a lot of things happen. I think that's what helped us create a lot of growth at Barstool Sports and in other jobs that I had. But for me, I'm very motivated to make the most of my time and to try to make something interesting happen.
Now, Kula, the last thing I would do is disagree with you on the power of digital. You are so right on. And yet, what you're about to hear from Mike Wirth is a great reminder for all leaders, even in this digital age. As chairman and CEO of Chevron, one of the largest companies in the world, Mike spends quite a bit of time with pen and paper. Here's a clip from episode 208 telling you why he does it.
One of the practices I have, David, is when I travel and meet people in our businesses around the world, they prepare, to host me, to educate me, show me their operations, and take me out to see customers and whatever. And I write notes back to everybody. I write a letter back, in old school, on paper, the kind you don't get many of anymore. And I pay careful attention to each person that I interact with, and I try to send a letter back to each one to thank them for taking the time, and to recognize what it was that we talked about that they shared with me, and tell them how much I value that. And so it's a way of recognizing. I think back to when I was early in my career, and And if a CEO had sent me a letter and actually knew what I was doing, it would have been a really big deal for me. And and so I try to remember what it was like to be in the jobs that I'm visiting, and that I had those jobs myself one time. And I want to make sure that people know that I appreciate them. So that's a little practice that I know some other CEOs that do things like that, but I'll come back and write 60 or 70 or 80 letters after a trip. And it's important to me that I make sure people understand that I was paying attention and I really do value what they do.
David, you and I both know that recognition is one of the most powerful tenets of a great culture. It's the kind of thing that can drive dynasty-like performance. And when your best people know that they count, and when they really feel appreciated, they'll bring their very best to work each and every day. It's why I love this next clip so much, and it's from Tom Nolan, who is the CEO of Kendra Scott, the jewelry company. Kendra Scott has had 44 months of nearly double-digit growth. Let me say that again, 44 months of nearly double-digit growth. And I'd argue that it's their culture of recognition that's a key factor to that amazing result. So let's listen in to your interview with Tom Nolan from episode 209.
You have one of the most original CEO personal recognition awards that I've ever seen. Tell us about it.
Yeah. And literally it was after I read your book. And the jar, I mean, I read a book called The Way of the Shepherd a long time ago, and it really changed how I led. I mean, I consider myself a servant leader. And, when you first become a leader of people, it's scary. So somebody gave me this book in my first real management role, and it really just talks about how to be a servant leader and kind of the thesis for the book. And I would suggest everybody read it. It doesn't take very long to read. It's a short little book. There's not as many pictures.
I love those short books. Yeah, I read it after you told me about it. So this is great. But go ahead.
There's not as many pictures in it as most of the books I like to read, but this one worked out great. So but the thesis of it really is it's a guy going to business school, ironically, in my hometown here of Austin, Texas, at UT, and he's studying how to be a leader in business school, McCombs Business School, and he has this great professor, and the professor has agreed to give him kind of on the side coaching and leadership advice. And he's so excited about it. He gets all ready and he puts on his best penny loafers. The professor says he's going to come pick him up on the weekend. And he shows up and the professor's wearing basically cowboy clothes. And he doesn't take him to get a business symposium. In fact, he takes him out to his ranch and he helps him herd sheep because the guy was a shepherd. So it goes through all of this to really understand, like to be a great shepherd, you got to understand the shape of your flock, each one of your sheep individually. And it's all about servant leadership. And the shepherd's crook, which we all know, is a symbol of that. And sometimes the shepherd's crook is used to wrap a sheep on the head when it's doing something stupid. Sometimes it's used to save a sheep if it's fallen in a hole. Other times it's used to protect it from a coyote or something. So I've told a lot of people about this book. I've given out a lot of copies of it over the years. So as a wonderful recognition for me, I've gotten beautiful shepherd's crooks over the years from different people. My very favorite one. So we had a problem at Kendra Scott, not a problem, it was an opportunity, I guess, where I felt like we had this great business performance, but I don't think we were recognizing people as much as we could have. And listening to what you talked about, you had to give something that meant something to you, and not expect anything back. So we created a recognition vehicle. I took the absolute favorite shepherd's crook I've ever gotten. It's about a 250-year-old shepherd's crook from Ireland. And I brought it into our office and I basically said, look, this is going to be a recognition vehicle that we use in our organization. And there's a couple of things that need to happen. The first thing is I'm going to identify it to give it to somebody, and it's going to be somebody that exemplifies servant leadership and how we like to operate here as an organization. And your job, once you have it, is to identify who's going to get it next and then leave your mark on it yourself. So the first time I gave this out to somebody, it was an individual in our IT department. And he was a quiet guy, but he really exemplified everything that, he was not looking for anything specifically. He was always working for everybody else. He was a great team member, part of the family. And so I give it to him. And what happened next, the time he got up there to give it to somebody, it was amazing. I mean, I didn't think this guy would be a great public speaker, if I'm being honest. So he gets up, and this is my favorite item that I own. Okay. Like, that's an important part of the story. My very favorite 250-year-old priceless artifact to me. And I'm kind of nervous about what somebody's going to do to leave their mark on it. So he gets up there. His name is Sean. He gets up there. And I notice he's drilled a hole into the shepherd's crook and wrapped something around it. And he gets up there and he starts talking about what it was. I'm like, oh man, this is my favorite thing. He's just destroyed it. And Sean is a road cyclist and he's really passionate about it. That's what he's into, the way that, we're into golf. And he took a spoke out of one of the wheels and he said the wheel that he had taken the spoke out of rode 50,000 miles. But the identifier was the spoke on its own was useless. It can't do anything on its own. But as a part of a wheel, it was capable of riding 50,000 miles. And I'll tell you, I didn't think this guy could public speak. He was crying. I was crying. The entire department was crying. I mean, and now it's turned into, several years later, David, the thing I look forward to, we do what we call a family meeting, which is basically a company meeting every month at Kendra Scott. And every month for the last several years, we've identified somebody reads the book and they're recognized for it very publicly in the organization. And I'll send you a picture of it, an updated picture of it now. It looks ridiculous. There's unicorns hanging off of it and a lot of weird stuff, but it's become a great sense of pride and recognition in our organization. It really matters to people. And I feel like, you paid it forward to me and I'm paying it forward, I feel like, to many others in the company. And it's been awesome.
Jared Belsky is the CEO of Acadia, a top digital marketing agency. And you're about to get a glimpse into how Jared approaches talent management. He says that you should hire for excellence on day 90, not just day 1. This clip is from episode 217.
The whole world, but especially the marketing industry, reaches for what they call someone ready on day 1. And what typically happens is that they grab recycled talent and even some people who are inexplicably failing up. But I think that in the marketing field and the creative field and the agency field, you're looking for problem solvers. And frankly, if you have a lot of different problem solvers, you're more likely to solve the problem. And I think what we've done well, and what I really would prefer to credit is one of my partners, Chad Crow, or our head of people named Tiana, what they have helped me see, frankly, I've had to learn from them, is to not reach for ready on day 1, but find who's going to be the best on day 90. So I'll tell you a very short story that exemplifies this. So we have a pretty open floor plan, pretty informal culture. So I sit down in my cube and this gentleman not too far from me, and I say, hi, I'm Jared. He says, hi, I'm Derek. Oh, nice to meet you. And I go, what do you do? He goes, well, I've joined the SEO team, the search engine optimization team. I go, oh, great, thank you. He goes, what do you do? I go, oh, well, I'm CEO and co-founder. He's like, oh, I've stepped in it now. I said, no, don't worry. It's really flat. Good to know you. And I start to ask him what agency has come from, here in Atlanta, where we're headquartered. And like most guys, he mumbles something, Swarm. I go, oh, I know that. Did you say Swarm? He goes, no. No, and he repeats himself. He goes, no, Swell. I go, oh, Swell, I know that agency. He goes, no, Jared, not Swell. He goes, SWAT, the SWAT team, the Atlanta SWAT team. I said, Derek, we hired you from the Atlanta SWAT team? He goes, yeah. I go, that's awesome. So sure enough, I go and talk to our head of people ops and everyone else, and what they said was this guy had perseverance, he had core values, he was technically oriented, and he was making a career switch that was so clear that he was going to be amazing at day 90. And sure enough, he is.
David, I've told you this before, but I live dangerously close to Jeni's Ice Cream. I could hit probably a pitching wedge and my golf ball would land inside of the store. And after I eat dinner, if I don't have dessert, I just walk on down to Jeni's, grab my favorite flavor, which usually is salted caramel, and it just makes me so happy. But it is dangerously close. We actually had Jeni Britton on the show this quarter. She's the founder of Jeni's Ice Cream, and she talks about her view on competition and how she really looks at the people who've tried to mimic her success. And it's an interesting take, David. I think a lot of people can learn from it. This is from episode 215.
Well, given your creativity and the uniqueness of your flavors and the uniqueness of your brand, I'm sure you did have competitors rip you off. I mean, how'd you feel about that? I mean, did you get indignant or did you, what was your thinking?
I don't really get indignant, but I was like, I would say it feels very violating at first. But then you realize pretty quickly that one brand, one company can't create a movement, can't create a trend, a long lasting trend, that you really do have to have several important players in the market, in the field. You can't do it by yourself. You're not really creating a movement if it's just you. And so what we wanted, and what I always wanted, was just really good competition. And there were a couple that were really sort of aggressive, and they're no longer here, and those went away pretty quickly. And so that was so that ends up being, yeah, truly the other thing is it made us a better company in every single way. And that is it happens really fast. Once somebody starts to like take, kind of look like what you're doing, you then feel like you have to get a little bit better. You have to do something better, and I really think that competition does make us. So, it's frustrating. It's really hard. It can be just very difficult, but also pretty quickly you see the benefits of it, of competition, and even sort of, even when it's like, normally people who steal the whole thing, which there was a company that did that, they don't last very long because they don't have new ideas. And so, those companies that were the most frustrating, those went away very quickly.
Did you have a competitor, or do you have a competitor that you learned the most from?
Well, to be very honest, I learned the most from Ben & Jerry's and Haagen-Dazs. That's where I'm going. That's that's the when I watch kind of how they did things early on in their like a Ben & Jerry's story, and when I see sort of what Haagen-Dazs is able to do and to keep kind of on top, and to make good ice cream, given the fact that even that they're a massive company. Those are the people, those are the companies that I'm really looking at as the ones that are making Jeni's better now.
I know you,
and they have become our competitors. I mean, they weren't, but now they really are.
Yeah, it's nice to have them. It's nice to have them see you as a competitor. Which is great. Our next clip is from Doug Hirsch. He founded a hedge fund called Seneca Capital. He launched the incredible Sohn Investment Conference. He's co-owner of a Major League Pickleball team, alongside NFL legend Larry Fitzgerald. And he is a heck of a pickleball player himself, having recently been crowned the men's over 60 national amateur champion, and he's now playing on the senior pro circuit. There's nothing that this guy can't do. And not only this, he has seen and experienced leadership at the highest level. And I love the clip you're about to hear from Doug and his message that nothing is beneath a great leader. This is from episode 216.
The most successful team in the history of sports has been the New Zealand All Blacks. And their mantra is sweep the shed. And what it means is that nothing is too small, even for their superstars. And I think that that's a huge thing. I mean, we've got CEOs who have their own elevators, and they're so disconnected. And how can the culture there possibly work? I think that who do you want to be at a foxhole with? There's that great story, the great joke about Lufthansa. So the Lufthansa pilot is speaking over the loudspeaker that we've just lost our second engine, but we've been trained for this. We're okay. Please do not worry. We have everything under control. We've been totally prepared for this. And he's taking them through, and they land in the middle of the ocean, and he's reassuring everybody, and I'm your leader. We're good. And then he says, everyone who can swim, please move over to the right wing. And everyone who can't swim, thank you for flying Lufthansa. And, I think that people know if you're in it with them or not. And you can't fake it. I mean, that's what made Messier so good. That's what makes leaders.
Pues el siguiente clip es de mi episodio favorito de este trimestre. Este clip es de Carla Gallardo. Ella es el CEO de Guyana y me encanta mucho ese episodio. Ella es de Ecuador.
Carla, this is an English-speaking program.
Well, What I was saying, David, Carla is the co-founder and CEO of one of my favorite brands. It's called Kuyana, and I love their focus on fewer, better things. They actually want their consumers to buy fewer products from them because their whole ethos is about sustainability and having products that last a long time and that are timeless. And I have several of them that I've had for several years, and I can attest that the products are built with quality and they are built to last. Carla gives us a little insight into how they go about developing their hero products that customers like me truly love and are able to wear for years and years. This is from episode 218.
Our goal is to create bestsellers, right? So we are designing product by product as opposed to season by season. And so it's very intentional, the design, right? We see a business opportunity, we make sure it solves a problem for the customer, and we go after it. And so you can think of a toiletry bag back in 2012. Well, all you could find are plastic toiletry bags, in beauty shops. There wasn't something beautiful made of leather that was priced at the, $100 range that you could just purchase and keep forever. And so then we designed our travel case set. Continues to be one of the top products. It's a product that's been out in the market for now 12 years, and it's still at the top, right? But it's these just white gaps in the market that we go after. And there are times that we don't get it right. And so in order for us to not pollute, right, and not overproduce a product that's just not going to work, the way that we launch a product is through a small batch approach. And so we will create a small batch of what we've designed, what we've tested, what we truly believe. We'll put it to market. We'll launch it. We'll see how it does. And if it has the velocity that we hope it will, then we push play with our factory and we produce the larger productions and start putting this product to market. If not, then we sell, we wait through selling that small batch and we just don't do it again. And so what that allows us to do is to create this business of hero products that get reordered every month and that build right into these larger business lines that we have. So this merchandise model has really allowed us to create this business that just doesn't overproduce. And that also allows us to really learn how the customer interacts with the product. And through time, we start to make it better.
Cool. I think I'm going to get you one of those Ecuadorian hats that she makes.
I hope you do.
All right. This next clip is from Witt, who's the CEO of BuildWitt, which is a company that serves the dirt world, which is a phrase they came up with for companies that do the infrastructure and construction work most of us take for granted. He's a young leader, but the passion he has to learn from great leaders and his discipline to apply those learnings is going to pave the way to his success. In fact, it's already doing so. To give you a little glimpse into this level of discipline, keep listening. This next clip from Aaron may help you rethink the way you set goals for the next 12 months. This is from episode 212.
I'm a big believer in being consistent and notching small daily gains. And if you add those small gains up over time, they add up into, it's just the compounding. Everybody knows about it, but few people can be so consistent because they don't have a system that allows them to be consistent. They're trying to do too much stuff. So New Year's comes around, January 1st, 2025. What's a resolution? I'm going to read 12 books. Well, how am I going to accomplish reading 12 books? What books am I going to read? How many, okay, so that's a book a month. It's not an actionable plan. It doesn't make sense. You're probably not going to read 12 books. Well, what is so much simpler? I'm going to read 10 pages every single day. How many books is that? I have no idea, but I'm going to read 10 pages every single day. So that's one of my chores. Every single day, non-negotiable, read 10 pages. The nice thing about making things non-negotiable, exercise especially, is that I don't need to sit in bed in the morning and negotiate with myself. It's cold. It's raining. It's still early. I'm going to sleep in a little bit. I've got to travel today. There isn't room for that. The decision is eliminated. I don't have to decide if I'm going to read today, if I'm going to exercise today. I have to do it. And when you have to do stuff, you do it. It's so simple. And I think it's easier to do things every day because you eliminate that decision. And so my chores, exercising every day, practicing a different language every day, writing 1 page every day, no script, just write, fill a page, whatever's on my mind, and reading 10 pages a day.
Well, David, I can't think of a better way to close out this episode and another incredible year on the podcast. This next clip is from Scott Harrison, who is the founder and CEO of Charity Water. And right before his interview with David, like moments before he sat down in the chair to interview with you, Scott and his team had just celebrated a major milestone, raising $1 billion for their nonprofit. His team is on a mission to give clean and safe drinking water to the 703 million people around the world who don't have access to it. What you're about to hear from Scott is what leadership and life is all about. This is from episode 214.
I've heard you use this quote, which is, do not be afraid of work that has no end. Say more.
Yeah, I love this. A friend sent me this picture from a New York City deli over 15 years ago. He was passing, and that was what the quote said: do not be afraid of work with no end. And it came from an ancient rabbinic text. And, I remember just thinking, oh, I really love that, because I immediately put it into our context. And sometimes the problem feels so big and so insurmountable, and it feels like we're doing far too little. But it's really about the positioning. It's about the intention of your life. And if you're asking yourself the question of how you can serve, how do you use your time, your talent, your money in the service of others, it is endless work. It is an endless pursuit with no finish line. There is no drop the mic moment. I have given enough. I have served enough. And, I've also seen and lived that endless pursuit of more with stuff, with status, with things that I could buy. And that led me to a really dark and empty place. And I think it's just really helped me. I've kind of embraced the idea of endless work, if that work is work in the service of others, in the service of humanity.
Well, David, it's been a heck of a year on the How Leaders Lead podcast. And I am so grateful that we're able to learn from all these fantastic leaders, and want to also commend you on doing a great job of interviewing these fantastic leaders. You're able to pull out insights that are helping leaders all across the world become better. So kudos, my friend.
Thank you, Kula. I think you may be laying it on a little bit thick, but I certainly have a lot of fun doing these podcasts, and it is definitely an honor to do that. And I want to thank all of you for listening and taking the insights in and making the world a better place by becoming the best leader that you can be. And that's what our podcast is all about. So everyone, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2025.